What is up everyone, Yami here, and this is the second part of What If Deku Had the Eternal Pheonix Quirk. Make sure to check out the homies in the YouTube link section that is in the description of this video. Also, just so you guys know, Deku would have been 10 years old in the last part. Now with that out of the way, let's get started with the What If video. We are going to do a 4-year time skip, which would make Deku 14. As young as Deku would begin to walk through the gates of UA High, the structures caught his eye as he would inspect the fine craftsmanship that was obviously put into the building. This train of thought would have been abruptly interrupted as a mysterious woman would have begun to fall. Izuku's observation haki activating as Deku's leg would form into a blue talon in an instant as he boosted himself off the ground and caught the girl, holding her in a newly-wedded bride-like position, her head pressing against his bare chest as he would have copped the purple unbuttoned shirt that Marco had, basically copying overall his fit, as a way of thanking him for training him. As the woman looked at her savior, her face would be as red as a tomato as she covered her face with her hands due to the position that she was in. Deku would have put her down as he began to look at her up and down, making sure that he didn't hurt her in any way, due to the fact that he doesn't have full control over her strength, and made sure that he didn't hurt her. As he'd say, "Hey, you alright? You look as red as a tomato right now." But instead of getting a response, the female would have just ran away in embarrassment, letting out these weird squeaks. Midoriya would have scratched the back of his head and basically believing that he, just made a fool of himself, as he began to walk into the doors of the school, pulling out a card in his pocket that said, Class 1A. It would take a bit, but within 5 minutes he would enter the class that he was looking for as he sat down, his posture being a bit laid back as he waited for the teacher to arrive. Deku saw the students flood in, but the only two he had met before was the mysterious woman he had saved from earlier and Bakugo. Over the years, the training that Marco gave him made him fearless in a way, so when Bakugo came in the class, he kept a straight face. Izuku even looked like an entirely different person as well, his hairstyle, clothes, and even persona, so Bakugo didn't even notice Deku was in the class when he entered. Every student would be seated as the teacher would have entered, Mr. Aizawa. Overall, aura and presence was menacing, he just seemed a bit lifeless in a way. He seems to be rather uninterested in the class as well, which is what most of the students would think, as Aizawa would then open his mouth. "My name is Aizawa. I'm going to be watching over you all, and also, you guys should go to the changing room and put on your hero costumes and follow me to the gate. You're gonna fight some robots to determine whether you deserve a place here or not." He stated all of this with a cold expression on his face as all of the students would remain quiet as they put on their hero outfits in the change room and went to the gate. Of all of the students gathered at the big metal gate in the outskirts of UA, it would begin to open, as a giant screen would begin to explain the rules of the game. The robots with numbers on their heads determine the values of the robot. The higher the number, the stronger the robot. But there was an exception to this rule, the 0 pointer, that would offer no points as should be avoided as soon as possible, and even if possible, as the students with points over 700 within 10 minutes would be able to be accepted into UA. With that out of the way, let the games begin. The TV would shut off as the robots would begin to flood through all of their sides as the students would disperse. Deku would have gone into a building and sat there, closing his eyes and sitting in a meditative-like position, emitting flames from his hand that began to create soldiers that were made of his flames. The soldiers were about 30, enough to create teams of 3. Basically, since there's 10 for each team, just so you guys know. They had a samurai-like appearance similar to those who served lords during the Edo State period, but Deku would snap his fingers and they would have went out in their respective teams to rack up points for him. Each team began to demolish anything that stood in their way. Deku racking up all above the necessary points needed to pass, but he decided to be greedy and wanted to break the record for the most recorded points in UA High, even past All Might. Izuku would have a smile on his face all the while due to him having shared vision with each of his creations. It's like live feed in a sense. Each and every student would be surprised that randomly a unit of blue flame soldiers would seem to cut down the robots as if they were made of butter, and would stand tall, victorious during it all. But the sound of the ground shaking would be heard as the zero-pointer would be moving in the direction of the students, crushing all the metal scraps left behind by the destroyed robots. The soldiers would have spotted the mysterious woman that Deku had saved her, but she was under the wreckage, unable to move. Midoriya would have opened his eyes and got up, as due to his heroic nature would jump off the building and would begin to transform into a blue phoenix as he rushed towards the woman, being able to grip her arms with his talons and pull her away at the last second, flying a safe distance and dropping her on the building, to everyone's surprise. Deku would have then focused as all the soldiers would begin to combine and increase into a large samurai, rivaling the zero-pointer in size. As the robot thrusted its hand forward, the samurai would take a kendo stance, making sure its right wrist is hidden from the robot, as it would block the thrust with its left arm and deal a clean and fast cut with its free and hidden right arm that was holding the blade. The head of the robot fell as the samurai would sheath its blade and vanished once its my bad again, I keep slipping for some reason. As the head of the robot fell off, as the samurai would sheath its blade and vanished, as once it was gone, oil began to squirt out everywhere as the robot fell to the ground, destroying buildings. Every kid and teacher that was watching would remain quiet, as what they had witnessed was a battle between two giants. After that was cleared up, every student would begin to go home and wait for their acceptance letters. Deku, a couple days later, would receive his in the mail. As he went to his room and closed the door, opening his letter, that the principal would then pop up announcing that he had been accepted into UA High and received the most recorded points in the history of UA, and all without having to lift a finger. Even got a ton of heroic points for saving the girl that was trapped. The principal would then wave his paw as the recording would turn off. Inko, hearing this all the while as she was listening through with her ear pressed against the door, and would open it immediately once the recording turned off, and gave Deku a big hug and a kiss on the cheek, saying, "I'm so proud of you, my son. I knew the day you showed me your quirk you were going places." Deku would hug his mom tightly as days would pass. All the students taking their seats, Aizawa would be in the front of the class as he scoped around and, began to inspect each and every student, but his eyes would stop as he looked Deku directly in the eyes, as if he was saying that he expected great things from him and to not let him down. Obviously, due to Deku showing off a bit more than necessary on the recording, obviously that all the teachers could watch due to, the fights with the robots and stuff, and how his soldiers just completely wrecked every robot, good stuff. My God, why am I slurring so much? My bad, guys. The teachers would then remove his gaze from Deku and would look at everyone in the class as he said, "Great, it seems like most of you passed. Now we are going to be doing a strength, speed, and intelligence test. Make sure to be ready." Deku would absolutely slap everyone on the speed test, even Tenya, a kid who had a literal speed quirk, but would barely pass the intelligence test. Basically, with only barely passing marks. Keyword passing, guys. Now would be the strength test, as they would all toss a ball, the woman getting an infinite number due to her quirk and Baku getting 705. Deku would have gotten 900, his physical strength mixed with the fact that he covered the ball in blue flames, manipulating it until he felt it was right and dropped it, as to not waste everyone's time. All of the students, including Aizawa's jaw, would drop at the score that Deku got due to them all thinking that he did not even use his quirk. They thought it was just his pure physical strength. Bakugo being pissed that he was outshined by this kid, still not knowing it's Deku. He will soon though. As we are going to the UH Sports Festival, all the kids being lined up as the race began, and they all ran, Deku being in the front with Bakugo and Todo following behind shortly. Midoriya would blast past the robots with ease, not really showing any mind to them, and when the zero-pointer field began to show up, he just simply sprouted his wings as he began to just fly and avoid each and every one of them. As a way of asserting some, Black Force energy and dominance, he would speed up, and then even speed through the minefield, hockeying up his body with armament hockey and switching his flame to defense mode, tanking all of the damage and running past the field as Deku would continue to speed up. His shirt being basically ripped, basically having burn marks and everything all around it, as well as some dirt too, due to the rubble that came from the explosions, but would be basically perfectly fine, just minor scratches. As he then would arrive at the finish line, it'd be of course in first place. As then it would be the same for every fight, but Deku's and Todo's. Both Izuku and Todoroki would make their way to the stage, eyeing each other down. The fight would begin, and Todoroki would make his hand into an ice hand as he extended it forward, blasting shards of ice into Deku's direction. As Deku would have hockeyed up his arm as base blocking every single ice shard that was sent towards him, leaving scrapes as the after effect. Todoroki would continue this as a way of pressuring Deku to basically, fall off the stage. Midoriya, getting sick and tired of this and irritated, would basically have a vein begin to just form on the top of his head, as it would just be visible to everyone on the field, as flames would cover his body as he charged towards basically Todoroki, melting the shards, and would punch Todo in the stomach with full force, sending Todo off the ring and into a wall, creating a crater as he was unconscious. As basically there would be a punch imprint on Todoroki's stomach as the after effect. Endeavor, seeing this, his eyes would widen as his flames would begin to brighten, showing that he was in a state of anger. But Aizawa would react to this and would instinctively activate his quirk and disable Endeavor's quirk, as All Might would restrain Endeavor, basically bear hugging him and restraining him as he picked him up and would remove him from the stadium. Endeavor screaming and yelling all the while, embarrassing Todoroki that was still unconscious and basically his family if they were watching the TV by any chance. The next fight would start as the announcer stated their names, as Bakugo heard the name of Deku and would charge towards him in an instant and would extend his hand, and the explosion would begin to form. Izuku would just casually block the flames with his quirk, basically shifting it over to defense mode, and would hockey up his hand as he backhand him out of the stadium as Bakugo would fall into a car. His eyes rolled back as they were basically white. This basically the only thing that could be seen from his eyes were just white. As the fight would end, as soon as it even started, everyone would begin to chant Deku's name in excitement as the three victors would be decided: Deku, Bakugo, and Todo. Bakugo would just be angry the entire time, being in his signature stretcher while attempting to move around, and Todoroki just having a plain expression on his face with the number 3 medal strapped around his neck. And Endeavor still being, removed from the ring. But Bakugo would just yell out nerd, 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 nerd over and over again, and Deku would just let out a sigh, basically ignoring him in a way, and not trying to give him any attention to fan the flames. As then All Might would then approach Deku holding the number 1 medal in his hand, as he then would place it down on Deku and would pat him in the back, saying, "That was an impressive show of power, my boy. All with having a good quirk as well, and seems like an extension such as being able to strengthen certain parts of your body." Deku would look at All Might and would say, yeah, I could strengthen my entire body, but it takes a bit more time to do that. It's easier just to strengthen, certain parts of my body rather than just all of it at once. I see now. That's quite interesting. You have a lot of potential. I'll make sure to keep you in mind if I ever need any help, young Midoriya. Thanks, All Might. No problem, young Mitsuku. As then, all of a sudden, All Might would turn around and would look at the crowd as he said, "Every single student here gave it their all and tried their best and proved that they were all worthy of becoming great heroes one day, as well as young Midoriya here. He has shown great strength and power, as well as even showing the fact that he can even one day become the number 1 hero possibly. Who knows though, anyone has the chance. Now, with that out of the way, the sports festival is concluded. As the sports festival ended, Deku would begin to look up at the sky. A smile would be on his face, and the first place medal around his neck. As he gripped the medal and would whisper, "I'm going to become the number one hero without a doubt, and I'll prove to everyone that I am the strongest." Now that's going to be the end of this part of What If Deku Had the Eternal Phoenix Quirk Part 2. I'm sorry for it being short. The next part we are going to cover is going to be the Forest Training Arc, so make sure to smash that like button and to sub. Peace, fam.
All of my bitches slay.